All right, this is going to start part 3 of the mini series build on John's Bronco II project. Broncos are us. We're starting a 3-link, or we started it. We're going to get the lower links mocked up and a guesstimated length that we want to use. Like I said, the main interference points are the future track bar and then the drag link. So right now we have the axle spaced forward pretty much at full bump. I'm going to move it up a little bit more, and then they're going to determine what length that axle's at for the links. A lot of people use PVC pipe to do mock-up. I have a ton of scrap DOM laying around, and I had 2 other sections I used on that yellow and white project that already had a left and right bung in them, so we just shorten those up. We're gonna shorten those up and make them the length that we need for right now with some adjustability. Everything can be tacked together as we're going through the process, and one step at a time. Let's get started. Put the tires on, lock to lock. Now we're just checking for clearance for the lower links to see how far we can mount them, and can we turn it now or no? All right, so that's full lock, and we still have what?
2.5 inches.
2.5, 3 inches. So the idea is to have the lower mounts out as wide as possible, which they are. So we'll take some measurements and cut these to length, and then we'll have 2 lower links kind of mocked up. All right, so we kind of centered the axle where we like it, mainly keeping in mind the space for the track bar. So we came up with a length between the bungs of 27 and 5/8. So we cut down those 2 scrap tubes I already had mocked up. So now we are officially attached lower links. Axle side brackets are tacked on. Kind of eyeballed those so they're not hanging down too low, but they're low enough to give us 10 inches of link separation from the center of that bolt to the where the 3rd link axle mount will be. So everything's tacked in place, and now we have some adjustability and some connection going on here. So now we're going to move on to the 3rd link upper mount, which will be somewhere in this area. So they're not hanging down too low, but they're low enough to give us plenty of room to get that 10 inches. All right, so for the upper 3rd link on the axle, I'm utilizing another old bracket I had laying around, and then we're just going to add onto it. I've done this on my Explorer on the track bar bracket that I made. By the time it's welded on both sides, joined together, and then there's going to be gussets to the axle. It ain't going to go nowhere. It's all 1/4 inch stuff. So we got this cut and measured for the angle on the truss. Let's see if you can see. So it fits right in there. And that was already pre-cut out on the K-member from prior. So that sits in there nice. I already got this back part cut out, the matching angle. So as it sits right now, we are like 10.5 inches of link separation, which is good. We want a minimum of 10. And I'm not sure how we can see it, but it points right into this bracket here. We did not trim the back part of the K-member yet. We probably will notch it out a little bit. Just depends on how this 2-inch pre-bent tube wants to act in that spot. Right now it's simulated full stuff. The only limitation right now is the upper link mount. So I'm not sure we can get any more out of it unless we can move the axle forward. Maybe, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch. But I'm not sure how that would work out. We'll have to see. All right, so just went ahead and double checked that we were, well, first of all, I took the bumper and winch plate off because we need so much more room to get in here. It's gonna be hard to see on camera, but we have center marks on the truss and the oil pan. So right now it's basically center. I got it to level out, the laser level. I moved the axle up on one more notch on the stands. That's definitely max. Right now I got the steering full lock passenger just to see how the pitman arm swings. And then it probably is going to look tighter on camera, but this is definitely the max stuff possible. So there's definitely, I mean, there's clearance everywhere. 1/4 inch between it and the truss, 1/2 inch between the top of the diff cover, 3/8 of an inch underneath the pitman arm, 3/8 or so from the tie rod there. So this is definitely max. We'll probably bump it out a little bit more, but I want to build everything at full stuff, and then we'll obviously adjust the full bump at the ORI mounting setup. So like I said, the axle center, and then common point on the frame on both sides to the top of the ball joint stud. So I know the axle is equal length on both sides and center. So right now I'm just kind of double checking the axle upper link, third link. Gonna go ahead and notch out a little bit more of that K-member, just for a little bit more room. All right, I got the axle upper link bracket finished, and that is tacked to the truss. And then again, this is that 2-inch quarter wall pre-bent tube scrap that I had left over from rough stuff. I got a slug in between, nothing's tacked or welded yet. This is just for fitment purposes. So I knew that this back side of the K-member was going to be an issue, so I do have to trim that, because at full stuff that heim is located, and I can't put this one in because it hits. So it's got to clearance that right here, not a big deal, and then we can move on. All right, just to make sure that I got plenty of room, I did mount it in the highest point, so there is plenty of clearance now. Let's see if I can get a better angle. So again, that's way more stuff than it's going to be, and then that's the highest setting. So I know that we're 100% good on that. So now that we got the lower links in place, mocked up, the upper link in place, now the axle is located from what looks good at the moment. So now, remember I was saying earlier in the video, eyeballing it, looking at stuff, test fitting an 1.5 inch DOM, I should have plenty of room to run the track bar through this location. We do buy a lot of these brackets from Barnes 4-wheel drive, mostly rough stuff, etc. And they are, you know, a universal bracket idea that's generally made to fit a certain way, but then per application you got to kind of make it work to your needs. So I have a short piece here I'm test fitting with a heim. And again, just kind of fitting it in here and seeing where it wants to be. The only thing I'm interfering with is the lower bolt for the gearbox. So vertical up and down, I am blocking it, so I would have to notch that bracket. Not a big deal. I always come off and do large gussets on per side. So if I had to notch half of this off for that bolt, not a big deal, because there's going to be basically a 3" by 3" triangular gusset per side anyway. So I'm just trying to see if vertically it makes sense, or do I try to, you know, angle it like so, which, you know, again, yes, it's giving me clearance on that bolt hole or that bolt now, but I don't know, it looks weird. Just doesn't look normal. I'm just going to tack this in place here anyway, and just kind of start building off of this location. And then if it does end up working out how it needs to, then I'll move forward and notch that bracket and box it how I need to. All right, I'm not sure if the camera's going to pick up the laser, but we had already had a center mark on the front of the oil pan on the truss, and then I just measured the center of the tie rod. I have a mark here, so I have all the lines lined up center. So basically, after getting everything center, the track bar from, you know, pivot point of the track bar, you know, heim to heim, you want to match the same distance for the pivot point on the tie rod on the pitman arm and the high steer arm. So I'm going to measure the center to center on the drag link, make a mark on the truss where the axle side track bar bracket will need to go. All right. Center to center, it's 34.5. So now I will pull 34.5 off of, let's see here. Right there. All right, so center of the bolt or heim to that line on the truss is the matched 34.5 inches. So I will start piecing together. Well, I have a bracket. Let me pull that bracket out here in a second. All right, so here is another universal bracket from Barnes 4-wheel drive. And this one's designed to mount basically right on top of an axle tube. So it's got that radius, and then it's got the full piece in the back. So I mean, it's all 1/4 inch, super strong, tall mount. Like I said, not gonna go anywhere. But we're not going on top of the axle tube because the truss is there and the third link is there, so we have to go slightly in front. So I already kind of held this up. Basically what I'm initially thinking, this is the back side, I'll call it, axle side. I'm basically going to cut it in a certain spot. I'll measure again. This side will sit on top of the truss. And then this side right here, which is longer, I'm going to relieve cut it and bend this towards the truss an axle tube. They make ones just like that too, but again, we have this to work off of, and no matter which universal bracket we buy, we'll be cutting it up anyway. So I'm gonna start with this, and I'm gonna bring this over to the axle, get an idea where I want to mount this. So yeah, let's go over there and take a look. All right, so like I said, we're kind of just playing around here for a sec. So the axle is beyond full stuff. I would say we'll probably move it down a 1/2 inch, and that would be the absolute max. So at ride height, you want your track bar to be level at ride height. So since we are stuffed, and we'll probably be running 3.5 inches, 3.5 to 4 inches of shaft on the shocks at ride height. I'm going to kind of guess here for a sec. At full stuff, the track bar will actually be it'll be lower on the driver's side and rise to the passenger side. The bar will be pointing upward on the passenger side at full bump. And then, like I was saying, at ride height, it'll be level. And the more level you keep your track bar with a 3-link, the goal is to eliminate any axle swing. So I like it where it's at here. Still got plenty of room between the frame. So I think I'm going to make a mark and cut that off, and then we can kind of build from there. All right, so that's marked. I'm going to go cut that off, and then we'll start to kind of see how this is going to work. All right, so just before this video clip, my phone and tripod fell over, and I didn't notice it, but when it fell, the receiver that plugs on the bottom of the phone was damaged. So luckily, I normally go back and check each video clip after I make them. So I quickly found that there was no audio on this clip. So I'm just going through checking clearances. The drag link was still just barely touching the bolt head on the track bar bracket. So basically I'm just kind of explaining, since I did swap the offset tie rod end on the high steer to a straight, even though it looks way better and just everything's more parallel, it obviously brings it closer to that bracket. So just checking it back and forth, I determined if I just moved the bracket back on the truss almost 3/8 of an inch, it would give me plenty of clearance and still make everything work how I planned it. All right, I moved the bracket back about 3/8 of an inch or so, 1/4 inch. Didn't want to move it back too far. I just didn't want to get into that stuff too much. So I'm 99.9% sure we would never use the second hole. So second hole, it just barely touches it. Not even, almost can slide a piece of paper in between it. The main goal was to make sure we have plenty of clearance on the hole I know we're going to use. But it's always worth taking your time and making sure you're good in any scenario. So top hole, like I said, no problem. All right, let's move on. So whenever I cut stuff off, I don't ever throw or scrap nothing out. So you see this little gap we got down here? That radius? That's a plus. So once we box this in, that's going to act like a drain hole. Here's the other part we cut off, that side. So the idea here is I'm going to cut it. Let's see, can you see that? I'm going to cut it, and then you'll see there's a drain hole. See my finger moving? There'll be a drain hole there and in front, even though it's going to be fully boxed. So I'm going to cut this little piece here, and then that'll be the how it mates up to the axle tube and truss. Alright, I got that tacked in there. I welded that one bend seam, and then welded the small part on, and then the bottom's tacked. So it's tacked on pretty decent. I'm going to go ahead and take a measurement from bung to bung, and then get some scrap, 1.5 inches, and make that tube up real quick. All right, track bar is in place, and let's see here, I'll do a lock to lock. So the pitman arm tie rod just barely hits the tube, which is fine. Remember, I was just kind of eyeballing it the best I could without having a tube there. I got plenty of room to move it back. So I'm going to break those tacks real quick, and then I'll re-tack it. Because yes, it's hitting in both spots. All right, so I made a couple adjustments. After I left yesterday, I was thinking about some things. So I put the axle all the way back up where I was, so extremely full bump, and we're not even going to be this much stuffed ever. So, but there's clearance on everything. What I did was I took about 5/16 out to essentially raise this bracket up 5/16, because I have plenty of room between the track bar and the pitman arm. So raising that up, and then I double checked my pinion angle. The pinion was basically overshooting the output, which at full stuff is totally extreme and wrong. You don't want to overshoot it. You want to point at it. So basically I took about 4 degrees out, which in turn twisted the axle back, rolled it back. So it gave me more clearance for the edge of the truss and the front of the diff cover. So those couple little changes made a world of difference. So let's do full lock. It's hard to see, but there is 5/16 or a little bit more. Full lock, passenger, full stuff. Driver, no issue. And then again, we're not going to be this stuffed, but we still have about 1/8 of an inch between that. So again, I'm setting everything at the extreme. So super happy. Now let's do a couple little flex outs. All right. So we are currently full stuff on the driver. Clearance everywhere. Right now we are straight. Full lock. Passenger, obviously it's above the track bar. And full lock driver, clear. So we are good that way. And I think that's probably more flex than what the 12-inch is going to offer. We're probably a couple inches lower than what we would be. Man, does that look cool. Plenty of clearance everywhere. All right, let's do it the other way. All right, opposite direction, full drop on driver, full stuff passenger. Everything's good. I did have to trim that little locating pin though. No big deal. We are full lock passenger. And there is clearance, if I get the right angle here. So awesome, super happy. Super happy. All right, so that's gonna wrap up part 3, which again was setting up the 3-link system, suspension system, the lower links, the brackets on the axle, the track bar brackets, the upper link, just getting everything located and getting everything centered as far as the axle inside the frame. Build everything at full bump. Like I kept saying in the video, I'm a ½ inch farther full bump than we'd ever be. But at least I know that in the most extreme scenario, we have clearance everywhere. Next video is going to pick up on getting the front 12-inch ORI or ORI struts installed. Again, 12-inch stroke. Already got a measurement on my truss as far as where I want to locate them. And they're going to look right at home. Right in here. Shouldn't take much to get these on, but check back for part 4 and you'll see how this part unfolds. So thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.